have talked so much in recent weeks and months about the state of Wisconsin and its budget and union fights and so on and so forth. There's another issue going on in that state, and it has to do with the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We're joined now by our correspondent, Mike Tobin, to tell us more. Mike?
Good morning, Harris. Yeah, it's all come down to the Supreme Court. And really, the Supreme Court, as much symbolically as it is practically, has become a proxy war over Governor Walker's fight with the unions. And that is because the Supreme Court, conservatives hold sway on the Supreme Court by a 4-3 margin. So when the Supreme Court seat came up following all of this controversy created by the union-busting bill, predicting that ultimately that this law will end up in the Supreme Court, the liberals in particular went after this one seat. They went after the conservative Justice David Prosser. A lot of money came flowing in from the right as well, and that's how this proxy war brewed up. Then, when you finally get to election time, you find that Wisconsin is just about evenly split. Their system is really convoluted, filled with bureaucracy, and there's human error. The margin of victory was only 204 votes. Initially, it looked like the favorite of the left, the challenger, Joanne Kloppenburg, had won. However, there was this terrific human error that happened, and that is in Waukesha County, where the county clerk there, Kathy Nicholas, now says she failed to hit save when reporting or recording the numbers for an entire town. 14,000 votes in a county that generally favored the incumbent, the conservative, David Prosser. Those numbers were tallied in, as well as some other corrections from around the state. Now the conservative looks like he is in the lead by 7,500 votes. This is after the liberal challenger had already given her victory speech.
So she failed to hit save on the computer?
That's simple. What are they? They call that fat fingers, right? When you make a mistake on the keyboard.
I remember that here on Wall Street. Remember? And it was like the worst, one of the worst Fridays we've seen in recent years because somebody hit the wrong button. I don't know. They said it was a myth, but then I think they found the guy or something with the fat finger. Very interesting. So what happens next as we move forward? Because, by the way, I follow on Twitter Governor Walker. He was very disappointed that his teams did not do well in the big dance, March Madness, but he has been talking about creating jobs in Wisconsin, so on and so forth. So this union thing is still very much in the news there, right?
Oh, absolutely, and it's not resolved, and that is because the courts have locked it up. There's a circuit court with a circuit court's judge, Mary Ann Sumi, who took this case. The Democrats challenged it. They challenged it on the grounds that when the Republicans did their maneuvering, where they stripped all the fiscal language out of the law, then muscled it through committee and muscled it through the Senate, the Democrats allege that conservatives violated the state's open meetings laws. I won't go too much into the allegations about that because it gets very convoluted and confusing. Anyway, the circuit judge took the case. While the case is pending before the court, she slapped an injunction on Governor Walker's law. So this law that limits the unions, and according to Governor Walker, creates cost savings for the state, doesn't go into effect while this injunction is in place. So this is headed for the Supreme Court. It's already been certified or recommended up to the Supreme Court. In addition, yesterday the Attorney General, with the blessing of Governor Walker, appealed to the Supreme Court to try to get the circuit judge's injunction vacated and get this law to go into effect. So from that standpoint, it is already with the Supreme Court. Then keep in mind there are a jillion other legal challenges that question the way things were done, question the constitutionality of the law. Ultimately, this will end up in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Therefore, the conservatives want to see their majority, the liberals want to see their majority to impact the outcome.
All right, Warren, W. Warren 07 asks a good question. Now what? Okay. I mean, are people going to be out of work? What happens in the interim while this thing is hung up?
Well, now what? I guess I answer that question to some extent. The Republicans are trying, and the Governor Walker and the Attorney General are trying to get this injunction vacated and get this law to go into effect.
Yeah, but what happens?
The nuts and bolts. Right, the nuts and bolts of the budget were passed. Then, as it relates to the Supreme Court, you've just got to wait for the canvassing to be done. The canvassing is supposed to be done on April the 15th in terms of the election for that seat.
All right, Mike Tobin, our correspondent in Wisconsin. Never a dull moment in that state.
No.
And it is
a beautiful state. You know, it is. The food's excellent, and I won't say go Packers. I'm a Bears fan. Cubs meet the Brewers today. I used to live
next door in Vikings country, and I had to hide my green and gold. I was a cheesehead, my friend. All right.
So Cubs versus Brewers today. Maybe that's going to be a referendum.
Oh, nice.
See how it
Nicely
goes.
done. Mike?